Thank you, Hilding. Hilding Halverson has a solo that I don't know just what he's going to sing, maybe tonight, maybe during the week sometime. On this same theme, when there's peace within. Hilding has an interesting way of carrying his music around. He tears a piece out of a hymn book and sticks it in his pocket, and it gets wrinkled and worn and faded and wet, and pretty soon you can hardly read it, and finally it disintegrates and is gone, and he can't find the copy of that song. That's right. And I only have 1,150 hymn books, and I've looked through at least 1,125 of them so far, and I haven't found that song. I don't know where you got it.
It's a great song.
Are you sure you didn't make it up somewhere along through the years?
I did. I did a good job.
You did a good job. This matter of peace is wonderful. And it reminds me of the story of the GI who, just before leaving for assignment on the other side of the world, got married. And he asked his bride to be sure and write him. He made a promise to write every day. You make quite wild promises some of those times. And she said she'd write him every day, and he said he would. So he got over there on the other side of the world in the war, and he got the letters. They came regularly. He didn't get them every day. They'd come in bunches now and then, but she had written every day. She kept her promise. But as he read them, something happened. So he wrote back. He said, I'm getting your letters. They're coming. I get them. I haven't missed one. But he said, really, he said, you're complaining and you're fussing and you're griping about your condition and you're mad because I'm gone. And he says, your letters don't give me any encouragement at all. He said, please start writing something a little bit more cheerful. He says, for after all, he said, you must remember, I'm over here fighting a war. He said, I want to enjoy this war in peace. Now you laugh a little, but that's a good definition of peace. The kind of peace that Jesus gives to you, you're going to have amidst all the storms of life and all the warfare that we have as Christians. Peace isn't something that's outside or around or you manufacture at a peace table. Peace is something that you as God's child can have within. And you can adjust to all the troubles of life if you have the peace within. Will you sing that for us tonight sometime?
I'll be delighted.
You will.
I'll be delighted.
E flat, you sing it in, do you?
3 flats.
3 flats. I can play in any key if you give me the flat.
Really great.
Or any flat if you give me the key.
Yeah.
Now, what was I supposed to do tonight? Got me all excited on this matter of peace. I'm so peaceful I've forgotten where I'm going. We're having a great time this summer. This is the 37th annual year of the Maranatha Bible Conference. That was preceded by nearly a decade when various conference groups and organizations and church societies were here. That was preceded in the 20s by a decade when the great evangelist Paul Rader was here. And much of the building on the grounds dates back possibly to that period. That was preceded by a period of time when there was a big hotel here on the grounds down along the channel, now where the Schufeld home is located. And they used to bring excursion groups of people from Chicago and Milwaukee, and they'd drop anchor with the big boats out here in the lake, maybe a quarter of a mile, and bring the people in little launches to the hotel which they had here along the channel. That was preceded by a very interesting decade in the 1890s when Charles Hackley, whose name is on almost everything in Muskegon, we've got a Hackley Hospital and a Hackley Bank and the Hackley Library and Hackley Boulevard and Hackley this and Hackley that, and these were called the Hackley Park Assembly Grounds. And back in the 1890s, my father tells of driving down here when he was pastoring in Fremont, Michigan with his horse and buggy and some of his friends, and they'd come down an old time camp meeting that had on the ground. It was a big temple up in the dunes. I have a picture of it. And great were the revival days during the 1890s. That was preceded by a period when they had a sawmill along the mouth of the channel. And as they did all over Michigan, they cut down the timber and floated it down the rivers and streams. And there would be a sawmill at the mouth of the river or stream before it comes into Lake Michigan. And they'd catch the lumber and saw it up, and this was the lumber capital of the world back in about 1850, 1860. And Mr. Hackley was here. Incidentally, another man was a partner with Mr. Hackley by the name of Mr. Hume. And when Mr. Hume and Mr. Hackley broke off relationship, Mr. Hume went to California. And he was a lumberman. He got up there in the big sequoias and began doing business with those great trees that you have out there. And Hume Lake Bible Conference is now on the site where Mr. Hume, who was a native of Muskegon, went out there. Now, whether they had anything in common getting Bible conferences started, I don't know. But a book's just recently been written about Hume Lake. It tells about Mr. Hume that came from Muskegon. So these grounds have a long history and a rich heritage. And for the most part of the time, across the last 100 years, these have been grounds where the Word of God has been preached and where the Bible has been the center of the program and where people have come for spiritual refreshing. And this summer has been no exception. We started out with 2 camp weeks. United World Mission brought a large number of kids here for 1 week and sent them home and brought another group. And we had the 2 glorious camp weeks at the very beginning of the summer. Then our regular program began with a Bible teacher, an inspirational man bringing messages, a missionary representing one of our faith missions, and the music man. And we've had this type of program through the summer. God has been blessing. We are a family conference. And some of our services we divide. The teens are in one area, the adults are in another area, the children are in another area, and we work together, and yet we sort of synchronize all of these together. And the times we're together in the tabernacle, and it usually builds up until the weekend. We have hundreds of people who come from all over western Michigan to be with us for the closing days of the week, our music programs, and our Sunday ministry here. And God has been good to us this summer. Now, as you get towards the end of the summer, sometimes we don't have quite as many people on the ground, but it's usually one of the best weeks of the whole year. And I'll tell you, I've learned a secret. I've been here 37 years, and I've learned 2 or 3 things in that time. And one is that as the summer progresses, the spiritual thermometer seems to rise. And the only explanation I have for it is this, that during the first week of our conference, the several hundred people here, we asked them when they went home to pray for the rest of the folks coming in. And then the second week, we had a group here, and they went home all enthused, and they began to pray. And we've had now 8 weeks with people going back to their homes and to their churches and praying for you. And so you've got 8 weeks of prayer behind this week. And I just feel on my bones we're going to have a great time.